Psychoanalysis. My name is Silvia Weinbuch. I'm one of the organizers. I've been working with Andrea Rodriguez Quiroga de Pereira, the chair of the research department of USAM, and Joaquin Asiain, psychology student and our technician. I have the honor to present our panelists today, Dr. Andrés Roussos. He's doctor in psychology at the Belgrano University. He has served as a professor at universities in Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and the United States. He's currently director of the team for research in clinical psychology at the Belgrano University, Argentina, and is an independent researcher at CONICET. He's a member of the research chapter of the Sociedad Argentina de Psychoanalysis, the International Society for Mental Health Online, and the Society for Psychotherapy Research, of which he has been president of its Latin American chapter from 2010 till 2013. He will speak about theories that support the use of new technologies for treatments, state of art of new technologies for treatments, and the ethical implications. We will begin now, and we will ask you to please write down the questions in the column you have at the right of the web page.
Well, hello. Considering that this is a worldwide webinar, I say not only good morning, but also good afternoon and good evening. I don't know what is your time, what is your exact time right now. Then we will begin with this panel. I really want to express my gratitude to the people who invite me, to Andrea and Silvia, and also to the International Psychoanalytic Association, which is the host of this panel, and also to USAM, which is the institution who organized this webinar. And well, let's begin to talk about what happened with the new technologies and psychotherapy. I will cut the image because the important things here is to talk about ideas. Let's see. When I finished my graduate students, I began to work in research. And I had the opportunity to work in the team of Dr. Horst Kichele in Ulm and Erhard Mergenthaler, which is a system engineer specialist, and we were working about text analysis system assisted by computer. And the discussion almost or more than 20 years after was, is it defensively, technically, and also ethically to be using modern technology in psychotherapy? And the debates at that moment were very, very hard, with people absolutely against the use of this type of technology in psychotherapy, especially in psychoanalysis, and with some few groups working on the development of these technologies, especially in Ulm, especially in Germany, but not only in Germany, also in the States or also in northern countries like Norway. 20 years later, what is under discussion is the following. Is it defensible to not use modern technology in psychotherapy? Is it possible to think psychotherapy without any participation of the new technologies? Right now, the pressure to include new technology in our regular practice is very hard. And it is necessary to think a little bit how to include this new technologies, the limits, the borders, the ethical considerations involved on that, and especially, and I will stress that, especially the use of this technology. How useful is it? It's bring us more powerful to our action, or it's only a new fashion in our practice. Let me talk about this like, well, okay, 20 years after new technologies were something like a terrible monster, that it was with us to destroy whatever is good in our practice. But 20 years later, the situation is very, very different. It's like a cute little monster, sweet, effective, very seductive, and very practical. I think that we need to balance the situation and analyze if it's a cute monster, a terrible monster, or if it's not a monster at all, it's only a new way of deliver our knowledge, deliver our practice and our intentions. How to perform psychotherapy, and in this case, specific case, psychoanalysis to the people, how to empower psychoanalysis not only as a treatment, but also as a way to understand reality through the use of new technologies. A specific point, I'm not a psychoanalyst. I worked my whole entire career with psychoanalysts. Actually, since I am Argentinian and from Buenos Aires, part of my DNA is psychoanalytic. Here in Buenos Aires, the taxi drivers can talk to you mentioning things like defense mechanism, and they can tell you, you are projecting, and things like that. Then to be in Buenos Aires is to be part of a psychoanalytic way of thinking. Then psychoanalysis is, for me, something like my backyard in order to do research. I was trained with a psychoanalyst, like I mentioned, Dr. Horst Kekele, but also Wilma Bucci in the States. And it's very interesting for me to observe how psychoanalysis is acting and reacting in relationship with the new technologies. I'm observing this phenomenon since, I don't know, more than 20 years ago, and I'm surprised about good things and bad things about how psychoanalysis react. And well, this is what we will be talking about today. Basically, I want to mention something like the status of the new technologies and the mental health, the types of use of technologies in psychotherapy and specifically in psychoanalysis, technical and ethical issues related with the inclusion of the new technologies in the private office or in the public hospitals, and psychoanalytic contributions to the knowledge of internet. This is a little bit ambitious. I don't know if we will have enough time to talk about this and discuss with you. I'm eager to receive your questions, but we will talk. But also, it's only an approach. I know that some of you are very well-trained therapists in terms of use of technologies, and maybe some part of my presentation will be very initial, will be a first approach. I'm sorry to those of you who will find a lot of very simple information, but it is necessary to homogenize the knowledge that we have about new technologies. What we will not talking today, we're not talking about technologies in research in psychoanalysis. Unfortunately, I will not mention anything about neuroscience, behavioral activation displays, etc., which is a pity for me since I am a researcher. We will not test the applications, which is a fantastic activity and very useful to learn how they work, but we will not have time. And we will not review the psychoanalytic bibliography about the topic, which is a very, very good bibliography, but I will mention it. Actually, if you see, there are a lot of very good publications talking about this. Only to mention some of them, I really like the two books of psychoanalysis online edited by Sharp. Also, very interesting work from Riccardo Carlino called Distance Psychoanalysis, and a lot of very good articles like the Paolo Mignone article about psychoanalysis on the internet. There are plenty of very good examples. I recommend you to read it. And of course, my presentation will be inspiring based on some of their comments. I'm not citing exactly the sources, but if you find these works, you will recognize very fast from where I'm talking about. Actually, few things are very originals in this presentation. About the work context, one of the big things that is happening in the last year is the manage of the big data. Big data, considering all the information that we are including in internet or we are giving through the objects that are associated with internet, like the GPS of our car, is generating a huge, huge amount of information. We're not talking about the mode of surfing the web, but also we are talking that, for example, there are companies in the States oriented to have smoke detectors in the houses that are transmitting information to the web services, then are collecting information for the big data. Then big data is allowing to generate a new kind of information, correlating information very, very different from the people, and allowing to generate patterns that are absolutely, absolutely surprising and in some point spurious, but considering the size of the information that we are analyzing, this spuriosity is beginning to be under discussion. Then if you find a pattern and this pattern is repeated and you can predict based on that pattern, this information begins to be useful, and this information begins to be very expensive and commercial, in a commercial sense. Then everything that we do in internet, everything that we perform in internet, it begins to give information to someone else, and someone else begins to take decision about our life. This is not to be paranoid about that. In a lot of senses, simplify our life, but we need to be alert about what is happening with big data. Then the new information technologies should be taking into account as not only as one direction information system, but a bidirectional information system. We are receiving information, but also we are giving a lot of information. The other important change, specifically in terms of health, not only mental health, but health, is a change from an episodic versus continuous model. That means our patient not only appears during the session, but also begins to appear outside the sessions with messages in different types of system, like WhatsApp or MSN. It's a continuous, but not only because the patient appears in our life, but also because we can be in his life or her life. We can obtain information from our patient. Also the patient can obtain information from different types of sources about what we are doing in therapies. Then it's changed the mode to think that it is not only a in-session point, but it begins to be a online treatments. Another point is the change from reactive to proactive, where the patients and the people in general begins to have a more active position, obtaining more information, changing a lot of small situations, like based on that information, and having more opportunities to react. And of course, a move from the focus put in the therapist in a general sense to the patient. Then the patient begins to have more possibilities in terms of his activity to select, to decide, to act. Another point, a very important point about the new technologies is allowed to cover a demand of treatment that, say, traditional psychotherapy cannot cover. A lot of population from regions without enough mental health providers, a lot of people in undeveloped country without a formal system, or, for example, groups of people who are very limited to access. Let me mention one very, very interesting example in Latin America, in Mexico, in Ciudad Juarez. Ciudad Juarez is a city which is very concerned about violence, especially violence against women. But women were not allowed to go to the psychotherapists, since the psychotherapists can obtain information dangerous for them and also for the patients. And it was a lot of pressure to ban the women from Ciudad Juarez to go to psychotherapy. Then a group of psychotherapists from Mexico City began to develop an online system to have psychotherapy in Ciudad Juarez. And in that way, a lot of women who were banned to have psychotherapy begin to have psychotherapy through the use of internet. In my opinion, this is a fantastic example to see the power of the use of new technologies. Another important point is the increasing number of mobile health, e-health, electronic clinical records, and the associated technologies with that. That means the increasing of the use of smartphones, tablets, and new technologies that are in our field. And this is only the part of the process, because are beginning to appear more wearables, displays to use, like phones, like little switches to include in our clothes, etc. This use of technological resources can give us a lot of information in a very early stage, not at the moment of the person asking for a psychotherapy, but before the person can be conscious about what is going on with them. Then we can have system analyzing text and detecting very, very early symptoms or signs, depending on what we are talking about, that can give us very, very important information to perform, for example, primary prevention. And maybe the most interesting topic to discuss with you is the use of psychotherapy without psychotherapists. What happens when the system that develop treatments, and it's interesting to discuss if we consider treatments, these types of actions, this type of intervention, where no appear any therapist behind that. But let's put in order the different types of use of technology in psychoanalysis. First, it is a tool very used in terms of administrative actions. Second, as a training and educational tool. Third, as an external and occasional tool, which is included during a traditional treatment, or as a permanent and specific support in a non-so-traditional treatment, and as part of a new type of treatment. These are the different types of use of the technology in psychoanalysis. But also, we need to discuss, or I need to mention what I'm talking about when I talk about psychoanalysis. Then I'm talking about psychoanalysis as a long-term, high-density practice, but also and specifically I'm talking about psychodynamic psychotherapies and psychoanalysis applied to understand social problems and issues, including non-mental health problems. This last topic makes me feel very, very excited about the possibilities of the psychoanalysis to give new answers to these new problems or the new issues that are appearing with the use of new technologies. Let's put in order the clinical use of technologies. We have three different levels. First, we have what we call an analogic treatment. That means a traditional treatment that begins to include the new technologies. Generally appears with non-specific technologies. I will explain what this is. When the therapists begin to send messages to the patient asking for a reschedule the session or something like that. Second, we have a guided self-help therapy where the therapist begin to give to the patient, the analyst begin to give to the patient some instructions about the use of applications. That can be non-specific applications like to surf in the web, to search something, or to the use of more specific action, for example, like relaxation applications and things like that. And the last level is the web-based self-help, which is not only web-based but also mobile self-help applications, which are exactly the applications that don't have any therapist behind them. That means a software doing an intervention with the patients. The non-specific tools are technological solutions for everyone. We use every time this type of application. The advantages are very clear, are free or easy or have a very easy access, are no necessary any training to handle this, and are very well. The disadvantages are not so well oriented in terms of the interest of a treatment, and specifically, and I will stress that, there are a lot of problems of compliance. There are a lot of flaws in terms of its use, a lot of security problems that we will mention during this presentation. The most common groups to talk about the non-specific applications are, of course, the email, the use of email with our patients, the use of social nets. I'm mentioning Facebook here, but you can select the social net that you prefer. The systems of instant messages, MSN or Telegram or WhatsApp or WeChat or whatever it's used. The surfing, the web, and the systems of video calls. I put Skype here, but since it's the most used and the most unsigned system, but there are plenty of systems of video calls. When we talk about specific technologies, we are talking about tools developed specifically to psychotherapy. And there are a lot of specific tools oriented to psychotherapy, and this is one of the things that surprised me, are very unknown, and we will mention that. Among the advantages are oriented that these applications are oriented to the problems, and in general terms, they have a very well organized norms of compliance. They figure out the problems of compliance. But if we talk about the disadvantages, we are having problems like are very expensive, and appear the first problem here: who pays for its use? The analyst pay, the patient pays, both pays, someone else pays, and it's important in terms of everyone who use, for example, a message system will discover how time-consuming is to have an interaction with the patient. Suddenly we'll discover that they spend not only minutes, but maybe hours during a week answering patients' messages. These type of applications require a training. Some of them are minimum training, very easy, but another group of these applications require hard training. Are not so easy to handle. Actually, I'm surprised because the development of the specific applications in mental health continue being very rustic, very not friendly applications. It is necessary to develop and empower that, and generally are very impersonal. applications. That means that are not oriented to generate a personal relationship with the in between analyst and patient, or if we are talking about web-based without any therapy, to generate a comfortable environment with the patient. And as I told you before, the big problem is are really unknown, the applications. I will mentioning only some good examples. Some good examples like a group of very used applications like Beating the Blues and Silver Cloud, which are for depression. MindSpot, used to depression and anxiety, and Smile, oriented to depression in children. All of these that I'm mentioning are based on CBT treatment, that means cognitive behavioral treatments. And here appears one of the main problems for psychoanalysis. There are almost no application developed based on psychodynamic concepts. It's very hard to find examples. A very good example, in my opinion, of psychodynamic internet therapy is exactly internet psychodynamic therapy, the IPT. The IPT, based on a book made by Farrell Silverberg, Make the Leap. It's a very interesting model of an online system which has a therapist behind that. This therapy weekly answer the questions of the patient with a minimal text-based guidance, and it's an 8-module treatment, and basically looks for unconscious patterns that contribute to emotional discussion difficulties. Another very important point about the IPDT, it's that is maybe one of the few treatments, not only psychodynamics, but treatments that have evidence about its efficacy. So, you can find an RCT showing the works of the IPDT. And this is very important because there are more than 16,000 of applications related to the mental health system. 16,000. It's a very scary number, especially if we think that only 2 years ago we used to have 10,000. That means in the last 2 years, increased 60% this number. It is not possible to know what will happen in the future, but the most serious thing is that only few of them, in my opinion, less than 100, it is necessary to double check this number right now because change from month to month come from clinical or research setting. The rest of the applications are product of companies, commercial companies, maybe with psychologists as a consultant, but are not a product of a research work or a clinical work. Only a few years ago appeared the consideration of accredited therapist. But if we think about the accredited therapists in the States, only considering 2015, only 55 of the mental health applications accredited by the NIH actually had evidence supporting them. That means the 85% had no single clue about how it works. And this is very hard because we are talking about the good ones. We are talking about the accredited one. We don't know what happened with the rest one. The only good point is that if we observe how many downloads had these applications, the effect is very low. Only less than 400 of applications has had more than 1,000 of downloads. There are something like tests made by the companies, commercial companies, to see if this is a very good place to include new products, and it's not working very well, at least till now. But the problem is, and this is very important to discuss with you, and I really want to make this, to mention this issue to you, is if we don't pay attention to this, if we don't do something about this, someone else will do it. If the clinician, if the psychoanalysis as a formal organization or a group of formal organizations do not prepare a good answer for this necessity, for this need of new ways of treatments, someone else will do it. And actually it's happening. As I mentioned there are almost no psychodynamic treatments based online. I mentioned only one. You can find something like 10 treatments, but it's a very small number in comparison what is going on, for example, with cognitive behavioral therapists. And you can say, okay, in cognitive behavioral therapists, it's easier because you can translate a protocol to a web-based treatment, and the protocol will work. And I agree, it's true. It's easier. But it's not a problem of the difficulty. It's a problem, in my opinion, of imagination. It is necessary to find a way to translate the knowledge of psychoanalysis to application. And we can think in different ways of do this type of translation, because there are a lot of psychoeducational information that psychoanalysis can bring to the society. For some reason that I cannot finish to understand, there are a lot of people who think that psychoeducation was created by cognitive behavioral therapists. And actually psychoanalysis works with psychoeducation since the 50s of the last century. And right now it's almost banned of give information to the web-based systems, simply because there are no applications and there are no generators of this type of applications. Almost all the applications are CBT development. Only few apps have psychodynamics concept. And actually help me, but I cannot find any formal research to not include psychodynamic concepts in new therapeutic developments. We can discuss if we can include the new technologies in traditional psychoanalytic treatments, and probably I will agree with you. But what can I not find is any answer to say why we cannot export from psychoanalysis very useful and powerful knowledge that can help people. It's something like to hide an important piece of information. In order to understand how the psychotherapists and psychoanalysts work with the technologies, we perform a survey in Latin America. Actually, we were performing, it's not only a unique survey, it's a continuous survey that we are performing since 2012. That means more than 4 years that we are asking people how they are including new technologies in their therapies. But before to begin to the survey, I will ask about the question that appear till now, and we will begin to try to answer the questions. I will need 1 minute in order to read the questions. Please, you have 1 minute to go and look for a glass of water. Okay. 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 Here I have a very interesting question. First, on the question of using technologies in therapy, which I would be positive about, is also the question of people who can record the whole therapy. As a therapist, I would feel a little uneasy of the use of patients may make of the recording. Yeah, I agree with you, and this is why specific tools are very useful in order to prevent this type of situations. I will show you an example of an administrative and organizational tool that prevent, for example, the recording of the patient of the information. It's part of the compliance things that I am mentioning. We have out Screen Relations by Gillian Isaac Russell. Is it the most important book on the topic? Okay, then that means that I didn't read the most important book of in the topic, and I swear you I will read it very, very soon. Thank you very much for sending me this name, and I'm ashamed to my lack of information about this. Could you please speak more about the issues related to psychoanalysis? How can you imagine a treatment without analyst? Well, this is a very interesting question. Actually, I don't imagine a psychoanalytic treatment without an analyst. I don't think that it's viable to think a treatment without an analyst. I only think that psychoanalysis can give to the people a lot of very important information based on the psychodynamic knowledge. In order to perform a psychoanalysis, it is necessary an analyst. The analyst can be there or can be online, but the analyst, I cannot imagine a psychoanalysis without an analyst. Can you explain a training with specific technology? Would it just a technology training or a therapy skill? Sorry, Andrea? Therapy skills?
Skills training.
Training, both. Both. It's interesting because some of the I was working and we are training right now people in the use of technologies, and in some point you need to have a technology training. Without technological knowledge, and I'm not talking about only learning how to use it, but the use should be very, very active. You need to be very skillful in order to manage technologies, to reduce the amount of errors and flaws, but also needs a specific skill training in terms of how it works. It is not the same to perform a traditional face-by-face psychotherapy or a therapist, a traditional psychoanalytic treatment, that to perform an online web-based treatment. You need to change ways to explain, for example, the written information that the therapist present to the patient should be presented in a different way than the verbal information. Then it is necessary to retrain some ways of communications. Okay, there are more questions, or we can continue? Okay, we will continue, and in a few minutes we will go back to the questions. Let me talk a little bit about this survey. Actually, it was an online survey which is active. I will give you the link because right now this survey is being conducted in Europe and in the States. Basically, it's we send emails to contact people. We appear in Facebook groups. It's a 41 questionnaire, and there are no personal information. Mainly, it's performed here in Argentina, but also the rest of Latin America is participating. This number, it's a very old number. Right now, we have more than 700 answers. In terms of theoretical framework, as you can see, psychoanalytic presence is higher, especially since in Argentina it's the predominant theoretical framework. But I can tell you that there were no significant difference among the action of psychoanalysts with the rest of the treatment. And then every single result that I will show you, it's a result characteristic of psychoanalysts. And we have very well distributed the years of experience. About the use of different technologies. About the use of email, 46% use email in terms of administrative situation. That means to schedule times, schedule sessions, or change sessions, or send formal information. 29% use the email to send different type of information. Use the email as an intervention. And 25% do not use email. About message system like WhatsApp or MSN, it changed a lot from countries, because in some countries the MSNs, the messages of the telephones are for free, and in other countries are very expensive. Then appear these systems without any charge. Then 58% use the messages in order to administrative solutions. 34% use these messages as interventions, interchanging information about the therapy, and 8% do not use email. 55% use Skype, but use Skype with patients that they see face to face. But we have 32% of the therapists that begin a treatment without seeing a patient, only via Skype, personally seeing a patient, only using a Skype. Then you have complete treatments, psychodynamic treatments, made only by Skype. 12 or 13% do not use Skype in their treatments. About the use of different system of surfing the web, like I don't know, Explorer, Fox, Chrome, etc. 34% use the web in order to ask for the patient to look for information or to perform some activity in internet. 5.6% use internet inside the session. That means that they have a computer and they surf with their patient in session. And 60% do not use the system, the web system, in their treatments. But when we asked, well, okay, what do you send using the emails or using the message system? It was very interesting, the answer. Of course, administrative is the biggest number, but psychoeducational material, therapist words, ideas from the therapist about what is going on with the patients. A group send questionnaires. A group send very, very external information like photo, videos, or, for example, songs to their patients. We're talking about, this is a phenomenon repeated not only in Argentina, but also in Latin America, and we can find similar results from a study made in the United States. But what they receive, of course, administrative things, also comments about the patients. Sorry, this is in Spanish, a mistake. The devolution of tasks required by a therapist. They receive a lot of mails that the patient forward to their therapist, videos or links, information about the patient situations, and again appears some information like photographs or pictures or songs. About Skype. As I told you before, we can see here a reorganization of the people who use Skype, and we can see that complete treatments, the people who use Skype, complete treatments are used in more than 30%. To continue treatments, for example, because of a movement of the patients or the analyst, it's used in, sorry, these are not percentages, these are final numbers, more than 100 people that, considering the size of the sample, it's like 90%. Mixed treatment, where they use both personal and Skype communications, in more than 40 cases, and communications in between sessions is used for a small group of people, but also is presented here. The interesting point here is about the social net situation. We asked if they receive friendship requests for the patients. 39% answered that they never receive an invitation request, 30% rarely, 26% frequent, occasionally, and 5% frequently. But the good point is, we asked to the people who received an invitation what they did about this request, and almost 70% declared that they denied the request. And when we asked to this 70%, okay, after deny the request, did you talk about this with your patients? Only 50% of these people talk with the patient about the request. The rest, they never mention again during the treatment the denying of the request of friendship in a social network, which is rather surprisingly. Why they never talk about this? Why they didn't bring this information to the treatment? About therapists search information about treatment. That means characteristic situation of the patient or pathology. We found that only 23% never surf internet in looking for information, 38 sometimes, 31 usually, and 8% always. But that may be one of the most interesting results that we find is when we ask if the therapist, if the analyst, search clients' personal information on the internet. And our surprise was that almost 35% of the population search for information about their patients without informing the patient necessarily about this searching. And the question is why? Why they are doing that? And here we have a preliminary answer. They try to find out if the patient said the truth. They try to check. They try to corroborate information, curiosity, or security, for example, to know what type of person is entering in their private office. But these are very shocking points, since there are no legal restrictions about that. We need to discuss about the ethical condition of a therapist searching for information outside the regular channels to do that. Also, we need to ask for what. There are no formal theoretical explanation about the possibility of searching information outside the clinical setting, traditionally, especially in the internet. It's something like to see an analyst knocking the doors of the neighbors of their patients to see if the neighbors can give them more information about the patients. Rather surprising. And the interesting point is, when we were to the institutions where this therapist belongs, because we were taking these questionnaires in different type of institutions, the trainers of these institutions denied this possibility. When they asked them, do you think that your therapists are searching for personal information on the internet outside the clinical setting? They answered nope. And when we show this result, they were absolutely surprised. And they began to work in different ways to see why they were doing that, and especially they work in supervision about this search of information. About therapists, why they use web in order to stimulate their patient, we find a very interesting group of answers. For example, buying things, seeking jobs, they included their patients in social network. A very surprising result about dating, using dating system with their patients. to include their patients in online help groups, to find psychoeducational information, and to answer online questionnaires. These are very, very intriguing results for us. We are doing right now a qualitative analysis about why they're really doing this type of activity with their patients, and how the analyst includes the information they include the new technologies in their treatment. Well, okay, we found that in 24% was a patient proposal. In 62 was a spontaneous action of the therapist. 12% colleagues suggest to use it. Only 4% receive a training in order to include the new technologies, and 1.6 mentioned different types of reason to include the information. In some point, we asked if this incorporation was useful, and we find that 83% find really useful the information. The rest find neutral or even harmful the inclusion of information. But our point is, it is possible to avoid the use of information. This is the very important questions to be answered. About the advantages of the use of information, we find that communication is the main reason to be updated with the use of tools, and for organizational reasons. Some, especially some some mental health systems, organizations are asking to include technologies in order to complete clinical records and to inform to the system what is going on. The risk that I'm mentioning is the loss of the privacy, the loss of the limits in terms of interpersonal relationship, the modification of the setting, the misunderstanding, including this type of information, the confidentiality, the abuse of information, and especially the loss of content. Here is the link to the survey. So if you want to answer this survey, we will include new information. Right now we are processing European and North American information, and we hope to have soon answers about this. There are more questions?
Yes.
Can you include new technologies in the transference? Isn't there a risk of the technology? I will ask someone else to read me the questions.
Can you include new technologies in the transference? Isn't there a risk of the technology in becoming some sort of fetish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree absolutely with you. I think that new technology is a fetish. I really think about that. I really think that we are moved from a fashion situation, and fetish. Fetish is a very, very strong situation right now. But behind that, I think that it's not possible to think to work without technologies. But we need to differentiate the real use, the real useful use of the technologies, with the use of technologies only to be a part of a big movement. We need to think what is useful, what is not useful, try to not be moved by very shallow reasons. And about the transference, it's a really hard question about transference. And actually, it was mentioned in the different books that I was citing before. You cannot think transference in the traditional sense. You need to think in a new way of transference. You need to remodeling the transference, and this is, in my opinion, something that need to be done. No one rethink the transference model in terms of new technologies, and it's very important. But I will tell you something: only psychoanalysts can do that. I told you I'm not a psychoanalyst. I can give some clues about how to figure out this, but it's a psychoanalyst's work. It is necessary to think if we will call transference, this new modeling, if we'll have a different name, I really don't know.
Which one is the last book you mentioned? Would that be possible to have the bibliography via email later?
I will present you the list of bibliography that I am using to prepare this presentation, and the books, the articles probably you will find online. Books you will have it. You will find it in libraries.
What is the current position of IPA about the use of technology? I mean, isn't it permitted to consider for regular analysis?
It's a very good question. I'm not an official voice of the IPA. I'll be very careful in order to do that, to give this answer. I will tell you something. IPA is funding research about the use of new technology. That means that it's not against the use of new technologies. In some point is beginning to appear some restrictions about the use of new technologies for the didactic training analysis of the therapist, but it's under discussion. I'm not an official voice of the IPA. What can I see is that there are no unique way of thinking. There are different voices. They are beginning to have a formal opinion, but it's not there. You can find in the IPA webpage a very interesting group of debates about, for example, communication and psychoanalysis based on new technologies. Almost every single book that I mentioned before was written by psychoanalysts belonging to the IPA. But the IPA has not a formal position about that.
Is there any secure online platform as Skype that is very bad at the moment? Any suggestions?
Yes, in a few minutes I will show you one, but a very important point. All of these platforms are commercial platforms. I have no commercial interest in this presentation. I have nothing to do about these people, but I will show you one of these.
You talk about diffusing information about psychoanalytic theory in the internet. However, a great number of researchers have observed that the fact of meta-psychology becoming popular knowledge generates a great social dependence against the theory. Defense against the theory. Wouldn't creating those kinds of application increase this danger?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. One of the things that I'm concerned about the applications, about the use of application in mental health is a false feeling of doing something when you are really not doing anything. For example, there are a lot of tricky applications where the patient feels that they are doing a real treatment, but they are false treatment, and these are obstaculizing the arrival of the patient to a real treatment. Then I have some very I really have sympathy with this question. To give isolated information, to give partial information, to present false promises can be really, really bad, and actually can be a very bad policy in terms of not only for the psychoanalytic association, but in terms of the mental health situation. Then against that, in my opinion, in order to generate serious applications to present whatever, psychoeducation based on psychodynamic concepts, psychotherapy based on psychodynamic concepts, analysis of social situations based on psychoanalytic concept, it is necessary to work really hard to organize the information, to generate something like a net of work. In my opinion, psychoanalysis should work in a net. Psychoanalysis is maybe one of the unique mental health structured that have a head, that have the IPA, have international societies everywhere, connected with a common training system, with structured information. You can find the roster is a different thing. The roster of every single psychoanalyst in the world. I want to have a psychoanalyst in Singapore. I can have the roster and find a psychoanalyst in Singapore, and that's fantastic. This is an asset of psychoanalysis. Then take advantage of this structure and generate something like a net about what is going on. For example, for some of you today, you've discovered that there are psychodynamic treatments online. And why should happen this? IPA should be informing that. Everyone should know that there are psychodynamic applications. Not to celebrate, maybe to be against that. But to be informed is very important. Then, in my opinion, if you organize a serious group of information, if you present the limits, like writing an article, a scientific article, at the end of the article, you need to write what are the limits of your article, what are the problems with the design that you use. Okay, the same here. If you prepare some information, you need to inform the limits of how useful is this type of information. One question more? Yeah.
Yes. Has the survey been sent via IPA database too? I'm sorry, I missed who answered the survey. Psychoanalyst or psychotherapist?
Every single clinician practitioner can answer. I'm very, very eager to have more psychoanalytic answers. And okay, I will ask here my host if they help me to send the survey via the IPA.
Of course.
Okay, but especially I'm eager to receive psychoanalytic answer, and of course any other type of practitioner in psychotherapy is welcome to answer the questionnaire. Okay, then we can find 4 groups of special challenges to analyze with you that I really want to analyze with you. I will begin with ethics. Ethics is the main flaw of the applications right now: confidentiality, risk, and privacy. The privacy of patients and analysts, the emails, WhatsApp are very, very fragile systems of terms of privacy. They don't have a encoding system. They don't have they are open sources, can be cached, can be written by any kind of person interested in capturing information. Then it is necessary to include systems that allow to preserve the information of our patients and of course our informations. Also, we need to put some limits about what type of information the patients can have about us, and we can also discuss about how much information we can obtain from our patients using internet. About setting, the setting changed a lot, including the online system. The setting is outside our offices. Then what are the rules for this new setting? Where finish the setting? The time, with some type of patient to give the opportunity to send messages during the 7 days of the week, 24 hours, can be very dangerous. We can be very, very overwhelmed by messages. Also, what happened with the emergency messages? What happened with someone sending us a message through Facebook saying, I will commit suicide? Or using WhatsApp when we don't have our telephone with us. then it is necessary to organize the setting with our patients in order to say, okay, if you have a really important message, do not use WhatsApp, do not use MSN, use a different way to communicate with myself. And about fees, it is necessary to be creative. As I told you before, the inclusion of new technologies is a very time-consuming aspect of the treatments, and we need to be very careful how we're gonna charge. In some countries, you can charge using, I don't know, the amounts of mails that you send. There is a very new development, a specific tool, a very interesting specific tool, where the patient is charged by the bytes used in each message. Then the patient can buy something like a pre-order, a pre-order amount of information, and they can use these bytes. And this application, after that, pays the therapist, and of course, with a fee of the use of this application. It's a possible solution for that. I don't think, I don't really know about what is the best solution. In my opinion, we need to look and search for good answers. For that, it's a topic to be discussed. About training, there are almost no training to the inclusion of the new technologies in traditional treatment. I think it's very important, like the case that I mentioned before, the trainers of every single institution, they didn't have any single clue about their therapists, their analysts searching for personal information of their patient. We give them this information, they began to work with this in supervisions, but it is necessary to not run behind the situation. You need to run before. Right now we need to think what will happen in the future, how we're going to train with the new technologies that are appear. I'm not mentioning yet virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. We are mentioning the wearables, but new technologies will be everywhere. How they will be used by therapists, it is important to begin to think right now and to train right now what will happen in the future. Also, the traditional theoretical framework will be enlarged. Psychoanalysis should develop more theory and concepts about new technologies. As the question about transference was perfect. It is necessary to rethink transference. Transference will not be the same after the inclusion of new technologies. And then we can think in e-transference, like electronic transfers. I don't know how to handle that. It's really an intriguing issue. I don't know how the theorist of every theoretical framework will work with that, but I can imagine fantastic answers from psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis, a lot of things that can appear here can be explained by psychoanalysis. And in a few minutes I will present in some crazy idea about discussion. I will mention how we arrived to these questions, but in my opinion, theoretical framework cannot be the same after the inclusion of new technologies. And about research, I am not mentioning right now seriously research, but it is very important to validate the new type of treatment in terms of their results, about their efficacy. But this is only part of the problem. We cannot base our action only in result study, because results show only results, but we don't know the process to arrive to these results. Then it will be necessary to perform research linking process and results. Rethinking about these concepts is also rethinking about new research to study these concepts. Let me, for the person who asked me, okay, I don't want to use Skype, what can I use? Let me show you this, this platform. Again, this is only an example. There are more examples. I put this example because it's a good one, but it's a commercial company. I have nothing to do, I have no interest, and also the people who invite me has nothing to do with this company. This company is in the United States. We don't know them, we don't know their fees, we don't know nothing about their commercial action. I am only presenting this as an example of an administrative and communication solution that answer part of the question that you asked me, the person who asked me. I don't want to be recorded by my patient. I want a more stable system than Skype. Okay, here we have a system that can give us a client's patients, an analyst patient portal. That means a channel of communication that include, for example, video communications, that include, for example, a client area where the therapist can be presented, can give the information that they are interested to give to their patients. This information can be different for the different patients. Then you can select what type of information do you want to give to any, to each patient. Also manage the administrative things like sending invoices, schedule the meetings, reschedule the meetings. There are online video session which is saved. That means that there is a system of encoding. No one can see this transmission, no one can catch this transmission. That includes the patient cannot record the transmission. You can send, using this system, questionnaires to your patients. You can organize a treatment plan with your patients. You can record your clinical records about the patients. You can have information, dynamic information about what's going on with the questionnaires that the patient answer. Actually, it is a very, very interesting tool. It's a very interesting tool in order to handle patients' information, because you have a secure channel. Also, you can send emails which are encrypted. That means are not possible to be read for someone else. And it's very friendly for both sides, for the patients and to the analyst. You can interchange information with your patient in different formats. You can send not only PDF, you can send videos, you can invite them to surf the web. There are a lot of advantages in this time of programs. Again, this is not a commercial advertise of this system. It is necessary to study more of these types of platforms. There are other types of platforms that also give you feedback information about what is going on with your patients. And in this moment, I can mention you, for example, the Scott Miller system of feedback information, or for example, the Lambert's OQ45 information in terms of feedback. These are very, very useful tools for psychotherapy and for psychoanalysis also, but it needs to be rethink in psychoanalytic terms, in my opinion, because are only partial information. Maybe for a psychodynamic treatment can work. But these type of platforms are very friendly, and I seriously recommend the people who really work a lot using videos or using email to adhere to one of these platforms. It's very unsafe. You can have a lot of problem, legal problem. It depends on the country where you are performing your activity. If you are in the States, of course, you already know that you need to sign forms and be prepared to legal actions in order to use these new technologies. If you are outside the States, okay, rules are not so hard. In some part of Europe, yes, but it is necessary to be prepared, not because of legal actions, because of ethical conditions, how to preserve our patients, how to preserve ourselves from very uncomfortable situations. Okay, questions?
do you think the fact that avoiding using
new technologies
is a denial defense from psychoanalysts?
Wow. Wow. I never thought about it. And I will not ask about denial defense, since I'm not a psychoanalyst. It's a lack of respect. But I will tell you something. It's not a good policy to deny the use of NT. We can select how to use it, at what level we want to be involved, in what level we want to preserve an analogic place to our life and to the psychoanalysis. This is not the point, but the idea to deny completely is like to deny the electricity, the power source. It's like the idea to avoid the use of an elevator if you have your office in a 20th floor. It's not viable anymore. I don't know if it's a denial defense. It's a very bad idea. That's it. It's impossible. Actually, it's impossible. You can think to preserve the sanctuary of your private office from the new technologies, but it's more an illusion than a reality. Why do you believe telephone is more secure than VoIP? No, I don't think so. I don't think that telephone is more secure. No. If I said that, sorry, it was my mistake. I don't think that telephone is not only secure, but also is not very reliable way. But it's a very comfortable and easy way to work with telephone. Actually, it's a very spread way, but I don't have any opinion about the use of telephones. Okay, let's go to the last part of the presentation. I have something like a mixed emotion about what is going on in psychoanalysis and new technologies. It's easy to understand that from my presentation. In my opinion, the psychoanalytic building, the psychoanalytic institution, has a lot of things to say about new technologies, and I can find only partial voices about this. I'm happy because I have a new book to read, this Screen Relations. I'm eager to read it. But actually, we are talking about only very good examples like the online treatment, the shop, the books, where appear a lot of interesting people talking, but as isolated. Again, psychoanalysis not take advantage of the structure of the organization. Someone asked me what's the formal official opinion of the IPA. Actually, the IPA has an official opinion and should have very fast, but not only an official opinion about the use of new technologies in psychoanalysis, about the new technologies in terms of the impact in society. And there is no formal psychoanalytic involvement in the analysis of the impact of the new technologies in the society. So only individual attempts, and that's not good. Psychoanalysis can say a lot and good things, not only a lot, because can say very precise things that were discussed during the last century and only need to be remodeled in terms of new technologies. And then my opinion is it is necessary to organize. I think that this webinar is a very good way to begin to discuss this inside the psychoanalytic building. I think that your question shows that you are very interested in and active on that, but you need to generate. For example, I cannot understand why there are no formal blog or formal display about new technologies in psychoanalysis. How there are no specific department of new technologies in IPA. It's a surprise for me. Why psychoanalysis psychoanalysis was during the 20th century maybe the most brave and audacious way of thinking, challenging every single aspect of the human life. Psychoanalysis terrified people talking about child sex in childhood. Psychoanalysis was a very, very strong place of discussing new ideas, and right now, in some point, the same the same institutions are being a little bit shy in order to avoid what is going on right now. I'm not coming from the psychoanalytic institution, the voices criticizing this fact, and this is a surprise for me. I expect to find new ways of challenging society analyzing this. Any other question to answer, Andrea?
No, there are comments.
Okay, let me present some crazy ideas. Let me tell you about the origins of these ideas. I teach several undergrad courses, and someday we were discussing about new technologies and psychoanalysis, and we began to discuss with these young digital native guys, 19, 20 years old, what happened with psychoanalysis and new technologies. And these are their comments that I find very, very challenging. For example, they were very intrigued about why paralinguistic message emoticons, for example, are not analyzed, are not thought. Why psychoanalysis didn't say anything about this situation? What is happening? What is happening with the written lapsus and the automatic correctors? We suffer a lot when the automatic correctors change our messages. What's happened with that? In some point, it's a new way of communication. As I mentioned before, messages sent to the wrong person can be very dangerous, but also can be an unconscious message. There are almost no discussion about this. Or another thing is what happened with the new interpersonal digital model. Our patients say, okay, I was having a conversation with my sister, and we ask, okay, did you have a conversation, or did you use a chat system in order to have a conversation? And they watch us, especially young people, say, no, of course not. It was using an online system. Then the conversation is not a personal conversation. They talk about people who never saw in their life, like the closest friend in the world. The new interpersonal model is very strong, and it is not discussed yet. We know nothing about this. About big data, they were very interested about this correlation that I was mentioning before, and they told me it is possible to think something like social unconscious, and then I mentioned about the collective unconscious by Carl Gustav Jung. And they were surprised. But then you mean that it is possible to find characteristic patterns of the society based on this data? We can find something like archetypes in this big data. These questions began to appear there. I have no idea. I don't know if these are, I put the title Crazy Ideas because I don't know if they are crazy ideas or are the ideas of the future, because those guys are the future. And the last point was the deep web. That's fantastic, because the deep web is the name that we give to all the information that it is not indexed in internet. There are a lot of reasons to not have indexed information. Index means that are not possible to be searched using Google or any other searcher. And inside the deep web, you will find things like the list of clients of the bank. You will find old web pages that lost their links. You will find software that are the engines of the different pages. You will have a lot of information uncovered. Actually, it is very hard to estimate the size of the deep web. The equivalence is for every single byte in the surface net, the net that we use to surf, the approximation is something like 500 bytes. That means that the deep web is 500 bigger than the surface web, and also includes the darknet. The darknet is a different thing. The darknet is a place where the people hide the information that they don't want to be discovered for others. Then you can have very different type of information. Groups that generate their own space to discuss, different lodges, say, having private spaces or person-to-person communication, but also you have very, very problematic information there, like, for example, terrorist group teaching guerrilla techniques, anarchist group teaching how to make a homemade bomb, pedophilics showing pornographic information, a lot of very strong information. When we were discussing with that, one of the students asked me, and it is not something like a dynamic media unconscious. It is not something like the hidden who try to appear in some part. You have a lot of junk there, which is possible to be recovered very fast, just linking some information. But you have a lot of information which not appear in a direct way, but appear in a very symptomatic way in our society. I find these type of questions really, really important. I don't know if are good questions, if are crazy ideas or not, but I know that these questions are the questions that are made by the people, were made by the people who are the future. These students are the future of psychotherapy. A group of them will be psychoanalysts, I can vet it, and they are asking right now about this. And well, that's why I bring it to you right now. We have almost no more time to continue. Then I will ask if there are some final questions, and then we will see if we finish this presentation. Could you?
There is one more question.
Okay, it's important.
Yeah.
Could you read?
Yes. I see, thank you. It seems that the speaker is unaware of the existence of CAPA, which has a very large group of psychotherapists being treated on VoIP, and even larger group of students of psychodynamic psychotherapy being trained on VoIP.
Okay, it's true. I don't know about CAPA. I will learn about CAPA. Thank you for informing me about this, and sorry for my ignorance.
There's one question that says, acceptance of new technologies is widely accepted by children and youth in your study. Have you also included and then data analysis of therapists treating children and families?
Let me see if I understand the question. Yeah, of course, children therapy and family therapy is included. Especially children, it's a very interesting point because, for example, the games used with the children, the old box of games of the Kleinian psychoanalyst, right now it's a digital box of games, and there are several attempts. Yeah, there are several attempts to organize something like a digital box for the kids, and these attempts are really, really interesting. But sorry, I didn't have enough time to present all the information, and I'm very happy to see that there are a lot of information that I don't know. I'm really sorry about to know, for example, not know about CAPA, C-A-D-A, but the point is the point is part of the problem is the lack of connection. It's very hard to find information, to find common information. That's why, in my opinion, it's necessary to generate something like a portal to manage all the information. Here, there is a colleague informing that I don't know from where it is, but inform a platform called practicefusion.com. I will try to write this in order to, which is a free platform to manage information, which is very important. And I will just give me 1 minute, and I will include it. It's very interesting. I don't know about this platform. I will study, of course, practicefusion.com. Practicefusion.com. I know nothing about this platform. I will write it. The book mentions against online analysis screen relations. This one, okay, it's good to know it. Anyway, I will look it. I will read it. I'm eager to read it. It doesn't matter. The point is clear. It doesn't matter if you support part or all or from time to time the use of technology. The important thing is to discuss about that. If we cannot discuss about this, we are not being serious practitioners, and in your case, you are not being psychoanalysis. If you try to repress the information, that's fake. Yeah, that's unhealthy. Even I really like the opinions against this, because we can build something better. And really, I don't like what is going on with new technologies in psychotherapy in a lot of senses. I'm very scared about how shallow is being the analysis of the new technologies. I'm very scared about how spurious is the use of the new technologies. But I think that new technology can empower a lot mental health, and psychoanalysis has a lot to say about mental health. In the new technologies are the new technique for psychoanalysis. Someone said that if new technology is a new taboo for psychoanalysis, no, because we are discussing about this, and all of you are psychoanalysts. No, I don't think so. I think that, let me put it in different words. Psychoanalysis, maybe it's right now, and only right now, please, a little bit conservative. And this is because of for several reasons. I think it's conservative. Maybe time, maybe the structure, maybe the traditions. And from time to time, it's very useful to get rid of all the traditions and begin new things and to think in a different way. And in my opinion, psychoanalysis as something that only is the unique structure, mental health, with not only a group of interventions, not only a well-designed training system, not only a global net, but in my opinion, and this is directly related with the old guy called Sigmund Freud, it is the only theoretical framework that has their own mission, their own vision about mental health. Not necessarily associated about the different way of thinking mental health during the years, not necessarily link it with psychopathology that is understand. Then you can have a more statistically approach about psychopathology, or a more organic approach. Then you can adhere to the research, the main criteria organized by the NIMH in the States, but it doesn't matter. Psychoanalysis has their own agenda, and this agenda is very well oriented. Sometimes put the psychoanalysis in an isolated position, but from time to time, this isolated position gives the psychoanalysis the possibility to have an objective view, a global view, and this is an important asset that need to be considered by psychoanalysts in order to analyze all of this information. Okay, thank you very much.
One last comment. Some people said it's an excellent webinar, so thank you very much, Dr. Rosas.
Okay, it doesn't matter what do you think. I'm happy that someone find useful this webinar. The rest I really appreciate. Even if you hate this presentation, I really want to know it because it's a way to begin a serious discussion. Again, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.